All right, let's get started. Well, welcome to the July New Mexico Drought Monitoring Work Group call. And this is Dave Dubois down in Las Cruces. And let's do a roll call. Who's on the line?
It's Raymond with the Bureau of Reclamation.
Anne Marie with USGS.
Les Owen with NMDA.
Curtis McFadden, Army Corps.
David Miskus, U.S. Drought Monitor author.
This is Chuck Jones here at the Weather Service office. I have Julie and Molly from OSE and Wayne from NRCS. And Carrie will be popping in and out.
All right. Anybody else?
This is Kevin Dodge with DHOCM.
Well, welcome everyone. All right. Well, let's get started with the National Weather Service report. I think you should have the PowerPoint up for Chuck's presentation. If you don't, let me know. Okay, Chuck, why don't you go ahead and get started?
Okay, thanks, Dave. Good morning, everybody. Hope you've been enjoying the rain. First 21 days, quite varied. We were just talking about that here in the office. There's some areas of the state, San Juan, Jemez, down around here, and then eastward across east central New Mexico. It's really getting nice rain of the 300 to 400% of normal type. And then there's other areas that are doing okay or near normal, and then some areas, not doing too well at all, like up in the far northeast. So pretty varied, but overall, I think it's above normal, and will probably end up that way, which will be nice, a nice start to the monsoon season. If we go back just a little bit farther, the last 30 days, if you look at the third column here, percent of normal, pretty good. Exception being the southern part of the state, not doing very well, and I'm sure Dave can vouch for that. But most of the area has been doing pretty good for the last 30 days, tagging into the good monsoon moisture that we've been getting for the most part. Just looking back at June, the Northwest unfortunately had no rain. Much of the state was below normal. Ended up only at 55% of normal, and that was the 33rd driest on record. Basically, no rain in the west or northwest to increasing amounts of rainfall as you go from west to east. Just another way of looking at this, 0.64 inches average for June. About a half an inch below normal. And look at the last 4 years. June's not done very well, so we're kind of stuck with below normal there in the month of June. And here finally is a third way to look at it. Look at the CD1 division. You saw how dry it was, 1.6% of normal. That's terrible. The Northeast Plains doing the best, well over 100%, but everybody else very poor. So not a good month for June, that's for sure. If we look at the calendar then, first half of the year, 13th driest on record, not very good. Over 2 inches below normal, statewide average, 56% of normal. Again, you can see the eastern area is doing pretty well. Farther west you go in general, not as good. And here it is in perspective to the last 100 plus years. Again, 13th driest, 56% statewide average. And again, the last 4 years, calendar years have been very poor, reflective obviously of the drought that we've been in. And just looking at the division for the last basically for the last 6 months, last 180 days. You can see, not doing very well. Unfortunately, Southern Desert's doing quite poor. Northern Mountain's doing the best, but that's only 71%. So, not too good if you look at the first 6 months as a whole. Obviously, July has helped these numbers some, and we'll see that next month. For the water year, pretty similar, 14th driest instead of 13th driest. Average 3 inches below normal across the state. That ends up just being 60% of normal. And these, by the way, are the actual rainfall amounts, and then the colors are the percent of normal. And again, just looking at it in comparison to other years, not too good. 14th driest. It's the late 1890s. And then if we go back 12 months, all of a sudden, it looks wet. Again, keep in mind that includes July and September of last year, which I didn't compute the percent of normal, but those 2 months, I'm sure, combined for over 50% of this total. So it's a little, it's not quite that promising looking, because the rain basically came in big chunks in 2 months, and especially September of last year. And so then if you go back 2 years, 24 consecutive months, we're now to the 8th driest, over 5.5 inches below normal. And you see it's ranking right up there among the driest on record. And it's a broken record. If we look at the 36-month period, 7th driest, over 8.5 inches below normal. 6th driest for 4 years, and 6th driest for 5 years. So, again, I'm hammering home the point that, in the short term, the drought's improved some, but in the long term, it's still very significant, and it's not going to go away very quickly, very easily, for sure. So last drought status, most of the state is in some form of drought status, over 77% in the severe to exceptional drought, and over 40% extreme to exceptional. And then back 96%, a good portion of the state is in some form of drought, moderate or worse. If we look at the 3-month comparison here from April 15th to July 15th, just a few days ago, we can see the West has deteriorated quite a bit, and we obviously saw that from the poor rainfall totals in June and for the Northwest in particular. There's been a little bit of improvement in parts of the East. And the only exception is some deterioration right up here in the far northeast. That showed up here a few weeks after that, I think. But overall, better in the southeast, worse in the west. Okay, let's look ahead. Again, here's these loops showing sea surface temperatures on the top and the anomalies on the bottom. And you'll note there actually might be a little bit of cooling showing up in the last few weeks. You can see that you're definitely here on the anomalies. I wouldn't panic yet. This is something that occurs sometimes, even with El Nino patterns. Carrie, I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there anything that you know anything about that? I mean, I was reading that it's not unusual for that to happen.
I think, in our weekly call yesterday, this actually came up, and I think this is a good example of why the ONI is used, a 3-month running average, because you get these, I don't want to say it's a transient, but I think when you look back here in a couple months and look back to this period, it's going to, like you said, chances are it's not going to be that significant. but it's a little disconcerting.
Yeah.
Especially as we get into, into the summer season and into, if we see this persist in late August, then I think then maybe we do have some cause for a little concern. But
Thinking back to 2 years ago too, right? When
2012.
Yeah, we're like, all right, here it comes, and it vanished in September.
Within a matter of weeks. So.
I remember that in the back of my head, and I hope it doesn't happen this time.
I'm an optimist.
Yeah. But still, models and the people, the experts at CPC still have an El Nino watch. They're still pretty confident, 70% by the end of the summer, and then 80% over the fall, near 80%. So, keep our fingers crossed and hope it keeps on developing.
Consider it a little blip here in the El Nino development. We still think it's going to be a weak to moderate one.
Yeah.
Of course, you said that a year or two ago also.
Yeah, it's a little disconcerting, but I still feel pretty confident that it's going to happen. And here on CBC, the outlook for August, very nice. Chances are we're looking at above normal over most of the state, and especially the northwest, half to two-thirds. And then temperature-wise, was something different that we started to see last month. Usually they're well above normal, but now they're experts don't have a clear trend either way, whether it's above normal, near normal, or below normal. Equal chances of any three of those events happening. We take the fall now. Again, very encouraging. Chances are, it looks like above normal precipitation, and pretty strongly so, across most of New Mexico, except the far southwest, but even there it's favoring above normal precip. So that would be very good. And then if we look at the winter, same idea. This is very typical of a winter pattern with above normal precipitation most likely, and especially across the southern half of the state. And finally, spring, everything vanished, equal chances here. It is worth noting, I mentioned this last time, if we look at February through April, and in a couple of previous months, 3-month periods before that, they were all suggesting above normal precipitation. So this is the first 3-month period, which happens to be the spring, where they've just gone with equal chances. So it's really pretty encouraging, right? At least into the spring for Southwest U.S. and particularly here in New Mexico. And the seasonal drought outlook came out a few days ago, suggesting improvement over most of the state, except the far southeast, and actually may even disappear in parts of north central, toward west central New Mexico. So that too would be nice. And that's all I have, unless there's questions.
With this little dry spell right now, I mean, you see it coming back to the west?
I couldn't quite hear you.
I mean, it's been a little bit dry the last few days, but do you guys see it kind of, the rain's coming back again?
I've been on leave since the 17th, so Carrie can probably.
Yeah, I worked yesterday. I mean, we're going to see a pretty good uptick today, it looks like, in terms of overall coverage. Now, we did have reports of 3 to 5 inches out in Quay County last night, in the Tucumcari area, down into parts of Curry, Roosevelt counties. So we see that moisture starting to work towards the west today, and then even farther west on Wednesday. So I think the next couple of days we'll see an uptick for central and western areas, and then unfortunately drying and warming Thursday, Friday. But I tell you what, next week, early next week, we could see another big increase in moisture, strong storms, more widespread heavy rains as another front makes its way south. Not strong, but enough to really kind of boost things as we go into at least the first half of next week. So, the trends look good in the extended range, and the extended models that I saw look good. So we're not done yet.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Chuck? All right, very good. Thanks, Chuck. Okay, let's move on to Raymond at the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation.
Sure, thank you. I'll start off with storages on the Rio Grande. The Toro is 19,533 acre feet. Aaron, 89,861. Elvado, 62,127. Abiquiu, 125,467. Cochiti, 47,681. Elephant Butte, 159,845. And Cavallo, 32,535. And on the Pecos, Santa Rosa is 50,260 acre feet. Sumner, 34,396. And Brantley is 36,069. And the rains have really helped us a lot in both basins. On the Rio Grande, we were able to shut off all releases from storage as far as for the district or for the Silbury Minnow, and the natural flows have just propped everything up and has provided water for everything. And the river is continuous, and hopefully it'll stay that way until the next rains come in again and help us out. On the Pecos, like you said, on the eastern side of the state, there are places they got 3 to 4 inches. Just kind of made a wreck of things on the canals for the Fort Sumner Irrigation District, but what I tell you, it propped up the whole river. Got water in both Santa Rosa and Sumner up north, and even some water in Brantley. They finished a block relief, and they gained 6,000 to 8,000 acre feet not too long after that in both Santa Rosa and Sumner. So that started replenishing some of that water they released. So by the way, so that was great. We're not releasing any water for the Blunt Shiner right now. We're not pumping or anything. The rains on the river continuous and been great. It's really good. So hopefully it will continue that way. That's all I have unless anyone has questions. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Raymond. Okay, let's move on to Wayne Sleep with NRCS.
I sent out a precipitation update report this morning that shows month-to-date and water year precipitation for the various basins around the state. We've really seen in the last month the impact of the monsoons hitting the high elevation, but even that has been sort of spotty. Everywhere's gotten rain, but how much has been kind of hit and miss. In the Rio Chama, it's generally done fairly well. It's about 224% for the month for the last month. But when you look at the water year, you start to see the dry winter and dry spring that we had are still hanging on. We're only 64% of normal for the water year. The Upper Rio Grande, these sites are all in southern Colorado, and they don't tend to see the monsoon impact or influence quite as much as New Mexico does. They're close to normal, about 93%, and about 80% for the water year. They did better in the winter than we did, but now they're kind of falling off for the summer. The Sangre de Cristo range, we're about 150% average, and about 83% for the water year. The Jemez has done really well with the monsoons. They're about almost 250% of normal, but still they're 66% for the water year. As you get into the southwest part of the state, the monsoons have been a little bit lighter probably, but they're still above average pretty much all basins down there. The San Francisco, Gila, and Mimbres are all like in the 125 to 165% of normal. But then for the water year, they were drier through the winter, so they're kind of hanging in the 50 to 60% of normal for the water year. The Pecos is a little bit deceiving. We've got one site up there, Wesner Springs, and it hasn't done real well this monsoon season, so it's showing about 56% of normal, about 60% for the water year. And then as you get into the Animas and San Juan, again, those are all southern Colorado sites. They're on the generally southwest part of Colorado, and they've had even less monsoon influence than the central part, the Rio Grande. So they're 70 and 84% of normal. And again, they did a little bit better this winter, so they're hanging in about 82 to 88% of normal for the water year, but they're not doing quite as well this summer. And then Cimarron is about 160%, and Rice Park over in the Zunies, they've picked up quite a bit of rain over there. That site's really a pretty low precip site, so the average is 1.3 inches. They've had 4 inches, so that's over 300% of normal. But that site was extremely dry this winter, so even with that big jump in the last month, they're still only 68% of normal. I drove into that site all but the February measurement this winter, so that just goes to show usually we're snowmobiling in there January, February, and March, and I drove in February and March, so it was definitely dry, and this summer rain is helping, but we need to get back into a winter pattern, we hope.
It's when we'll make our money,
yeah,
so to speak.
Do you ever take pictures when you're offshore of the rivers?
Generally, yeah, I do try to take photos while I'm out, so if that's something the group's interested in, I can attach some in the winter months as I'm doing reports. And then the Rio Hondo, Sierra Blanca is about 138% of normal, and again about 67% for the water year, so that's kind of been the pattern. It's everywhere is getting rain, but how well they're doing is kind of hit and miss. And as I've been driving around this summer doing some maintenance and stuff, you see that. You go through green streaks, the vegetation looks really good, and then you go another 20 miles and you're basically in brown, dusty. So it's we're on the right trend, I think. We just need a little bit wider distribution, hopefully. Maybe some of these storms the next few weeks will kind of fill in the gap.
I keep on going right through the winter.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I also sent out the weekly drought monitor update report, the long report. Usually most of the points in there get covered by the other reports, so it just kind of, I send it out just so that it's everything in one spot. So I won't necessarily run through it unless somebody has specific questions.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, and actually, photos would be very useful, especially if we can look at, start look at comparing, maybe if you have ones from last year to compare for some of those sites.
Okay. Yeah, I'll work on that this winter. The sites that I measure, I always take photos. Some of the cooperator measured sites, I don't always get pictures, but I'll just see what I can start gathering up and sending out as I do reports in the winter.
Yeah, that would be really good, especially ones that stand out to you, since you have the most experience and the most local knowledge.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. All right, Anne-Marie with the USGS.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
This report is stream flow conditions presented as percent of historical average for 21 stations in New Mexico that are representing relatively unmanaged flows. Normal is considered to be 90 to 110% of historical average, below 90% below normal, and above 110% is above normal. All of the stations that are in this analysis were below average for this water year, so October through June. The high was the Animas River at Farmington, which is at 82%, and the low is the Canadian River at Taylor Springs. That's the main stem, which is at about 11% of historical average. And median annual average for all of these stations was about 43%. To go through it by basins, San Juan River Basin, represented by the Animas River, that's number 19, is at 82% of average, as I said. Upper Rio Grande tributaries, the 7 to 12 stations, 38 to 70% of average, with the Rio Lucero is missing several months of data for this year, so we're not able to get a annual average for that, but it is, the gauge has been repaired and is functioning. Jemez River, number 13, is at 33% of average. Upper Rio Grande main stem, number 9, the Rio Grande at Taos Junction Bridge is at 70% of average. Moving on to the Canadian River Basin, tributaries in Colfax County, numbers 1, 2, and 3, 47 to 50% of average. In Mora County, 5 and 6, 12 and 14% of average. And then finally, the main stem, number 4, is our lowest one. That's one that's at 11% of average. In the Pecos River Basin, the Upper Pecos in San Miguel County, that's numbers 14 and 15. Pecos River at Pecos and Gallinas at Montezuma are both at 60% of average. The Lower Pecos in Otero and Eddy counties, numbers 16, 17, and 18. Stream flow conditions there range from 29 to 54% of average. And finally, the Gila Basin in Grant County, sites 20 and 21. Mogollon Creek is at 15% of average, and the Gila River at Red Rock has stream flow conditions 38% of average. And that's all I have for this month, unless there are any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Anne Marie. All right, any questions there before we move on? Okay, let's go over the New Mexico Office of State Engineer with Molly and Julie.
Hi, everybody. Here's our presentation. So we got our reservoir storage data was all from USAC, except for Ute, where we got that from the NRCS. Is that right?
In USDS.
In USDS.
Yeah, NRCS doesn't.
So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of did the same thing that we did last month, where we're going to do a comparison. So for Navajo, there wasn't any significant change. Actually, there was. I'm sorry. It looks a little. There's about 27,000 less than there was in June. And then for Ute, that's not a big change. It was just like, yeah, it was like 1,000. For Santa Rosa, this was about a 12,000 difference from June to July. And then we can see that like some of our summer was about 7,000 difference. In Brantley, there was looks like it's a huge difference, but it came out to be about 10,000. Heron is doing a lot, well, I shouldn't say a lot, has a lot less water in it than it did in June. So I guess the rain didn't help that any. Alvaro is pretty much the same as it was. There's no big change there. And Abiquiu is pretty much the same. It's only about 3,000 difference. And Elephant Butte, by far, I think, was the one we saw the biggest change. That had a 87,000 difference for the storage. That one's looking really low now. Caballo is pretty much the same as it was in June. Not a big difference. And that's all I have. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Those July levels, when were they through? A couple days ago, or did you capture anything from yesterday over there?
I didn't capture anything from yesterday. I got actually used up to June, it was up to June 20th? Yeah, the 21st. So that's
Monday.
From July. Yeah, so I missed any rain that happened yesterday, but we did get, I'm not sure we had a big events over the weekend, but last week we did. Was it Tuesday, Wednesday? We had some pretty good rainstorms. At least up north we did.
Last week?
Yeah, last Tuesday, Wednesday.
All right, any questions for Julie?
I was just going to say that the bigger changes you saw in the Pecos were due to the block release we made a
Okay.
couple weeks ago.
I'll make a note of those.
Alrighty.
Good to know.
Thanks.
All right. I think we'll do New Mexico Department of Agriculture with Les Owen.
Good morning. Thanks, Dave. I really don't have a whole lot of a report. I sent the New Mexico crop progress out to folks just to see it. Kind of what everybody's been saying. It's been not widespread. There's certainly been spots that have done better than others. As you can see in the county comments, not many of the counties responded to have information included in the report, but the ones that did, there's certainly some tremendously improved crop and grazing lands. There's a lot of happiness out there that there's some green and growing vegetation in different places. Just to point out, in the Curry County one, they talk about all farm and pasture land is benefited, but they do put in the caveat that subsoil moisture is still a bit short. And I think that's one thing that, to keep in the back of our minds, that the areas that have been blessed with rain, if they don't keep the rain coming, it's not going to last too long, and they're going to dry out and be back to bad conditions, which, of course, there's the folks that haven't gotten any rain are still in pretty bad shape. So that's pretty much it. If anybody's got any questions about things, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Other than that, we can just move on.
Okay, thanks, Les. Yeah, just anecdotally, I was driving in on 550 a couple days ago and noticed. I think Wayne mentioned, the spotty nature, as going from San Juan, leaving Bloomfield, very dry, and then going up in elevation, you could see the vegetation greenness starting to really come up as you go, approaching Cuba. It was pretty amazing.
And Dave, this is Kerry. I just wanted to share my experience real quick. I was on I-25 on Sunday, and Springer, Maxwell, those areas, I think as Wayne described, brown and dusty, but I've never seen like Wagon Mound, the actual landmark, was green. And I think that's the first time I've seen it green like that in a long, long time. And I mean, that's only about, 30 miles maybe? 40 miles through there. So that area between Vegas and Springer, there's been some good rains through there, but from like Springer north to Raton, it's much, much less. So, and I think that was because of June, mostly.
Mostly of June, okay. Well, thanks, Carrie. So I didn't hear if Joylyn or if Emelita was on. I don't think they're on. So before we move on, I would like to see if there's any comments on the drought monitor. I think we're seeing at least to keep things the same in the northeast, or do we want to do any changes there, Chuck? I know that we're still seeing very dry conditions on the northwest, far west, southwest, and south central border, very dry. So I vote to keep those the same as D3s.
I haven't put a lot of thought into it since I've been off, but
Okay.
we're thinking maybe some of this area could be improved.
That's some possibilities, yeah. Through DeBaca, because we had at least some short-term improvements in that area. I was looking at this morning, trying to make some sense into the SPI and the SPI blends in that area, because that's where we had some good rains. I don't have any real specific recommendations on moving lines, but I think we need to look into that area, south, kind of central. I don't know if is David still on the call, or did he leave?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm looking at it right now in the precip, and that D3 area in the eastern portion of New Mexico. That's where it looks like the heaviest spine of rain fell. Especially in the southeast, southwest Texas, asked for improvement down there.
Okay.
Around Guadalupe, I believe.
Uh-huh.
So I may some improvement down in that area where the heaviest rains fell, based on the AHAPS radar and precip amounts here. D3 to D2, maybe some trimming of the D3, like I said.
Yeah.
The further west you go, I made some improvements last week, so I'm not going to touch that there. It's very spotty too. So I guess any improvements I'd make would be in the southeastern area, down in that area where the D3, D2 areas in that area.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
That's fine.
Maybe a little bit of the D3 trimming in the, I guess you'd call that the kind of northeast, north central. It's kind of hard to depict. I'm looking at the precip overlay in the drought areas right now, so I can't tell what county that is, or counties.
And which part? The far northeast, or?
Kind of east central, right where the D3 is currently.
Yeah.
Some of the heaviest rains fell right in that D3 area.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
North to south. I don't want to remove the whole D3, but maybe some trimming of it. Unless you think it could be split.
So like having just basically I think it's Lincoln County, that's a big area. Because we've had some rains in the mountains.
Right.
In just short term. I don't have to really reflect it in the maps I'm looking at.
Okay, now I got the county overlays. Let me see what that was.
So there's that little loop that goes into DeBaca County. That little
Guadalupe County, it looks like. San Miguel County. Del DeBaca.
Yeah.
That area there.
So it's maybe some trimming of the D3.
Yep.
Bring it to the D2.
Where the heaviest rains fell. Yeah. Not enough, I think, to cut it in half anywhere yet. It's still kind of a north-south D3 area there.
Yeah.
But I think a little thinner.
Les, do you have any?
We'll wait and see what happens next week here.
Yeah. Do you have any reports in that area with rangelands?
I really don't. I haven't been over in that part of the state, and gosh, it's been quite some time, and I haven't heard from anyone over there. I should have. I generally touch base with some people over there more often than I have recently, but I don't.
Okay, no problem. And have you been in contact with the guys at the Corona Rangelands? Because I think they do some measurements, some plots, vegetation measurements.
Yeah, I haven't specifically discussed it. The last time I talked to Shad, he said they've been doing pretty well. I think that most of the countries right there around Corona has done pretty well with rain in the past few weeks. So
I'm looking at from Otero County northward into Guadalupe and San Miguel. That's probably where I'd make any kind of little D3 to D2s.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a couple counties north of Corona. So, okay. Any other areas you think? The areas I'm still looking at are the southwest and northwest. Just because it's been pretty dry in the Farmington area. I know, like they're like 50% of normal for the year, and down here we're like 36% for the calendar year.
You think we're putting a D4 in San Juan County? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, just I keep looking at that, and I don't think any changes, but that's where I'm looking. Because that's the area we just rely on gauges. There's no radar. Covers it well there. Okay.
I'll take a look at that area. I'll add ACES and a few other RC plots, see what kind of data it has for that area for long term.
Okay. That'll be great.
Bad enough, I'll go to D4 there in the northwest.
There's some lightning starts. Hey Dave, this is Kerry again. I just this morning I got word of 2 lightning-caused fires, El Malpais, which is south of Grants.
Yeah.
And then also there was a lightning start a couple days ago in the Gila, very near the state line, I'm told.
Okay.
They're just managing those fires, but that's kind of an indication of how still dry, even with what we've had. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't heard what the Arizona folks are thinking yet, but definitely keep the D3 going through Katrin and along the border through Grant.
Yeah, no changes there.
No changes, yeah.
Got a pretty good in the southern areas there on the border there last week, but not so much this week.
Okay, that's all I had in terms of comments on that. We're still waiting to see how much next week. It's always next week.
I'll have a draft map out later this afternoon here, so I guess you guys are 2 hours behind us.
Yeah.
Hopefully within the next hour or two I'll have something for New Mexico.
Okay.
Out.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So let's think about next month's call. I think the vote was to have it on a Tuesday, like today. Is that still on the desired day?
That works for us.
Okay.
This is Julie.
Okay, Julie. So what about the 26th? August 26th, that's a Tuesday. Is the National Weather Service, are you guys, Chuck, are you available?
Yep.
Okay, so how about 10 a.m. Mountain Time, August 26th?
Okay, that's for us.
Yep, sounds good.
All right.
Hey, it works for me.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
Great.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank
I appreciate you giving your reports and comments.
Thank you.
And we'll talk again next month.
Bye then.
All right, thanks everyone for your information.
Thank you.